Picked the wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
What about the skin? I need a good cheek. I like a good cheek.
She's got a fine cheek.
Is there a pinkish hue?
A pinkish hue?
Yes, a rosy glow.
There's a hue.
Well, hello, welcome back to Baby Doll Week 2, the sequel. Didn't do a lot over the weekend, played with some color tones, went ahead and printed up a couple of new scarves. After getting a bunch of rejects, I decided to go ahead and just take the best one and sculpt the detail that was certainly, that was always not coming out right. So there was one spot that was consistently not working, so I just decided to, what the heck, I'll just take the best one and then sculpt in that missing bit of detail. Over the weekend, I had an inspiration that was tinged with dread. So I went out to the backyard, dug up the box. Well, first I put on the hazmat suit, dug up the box that was in an unmarked grave that contained, and I shouldn't even be holding this with my bare hands, the Molotov chrome, the liquid chrome paint. Anybody who's watched me endure the throes of that in the ET ship build will remember that is vicious stuff. To me, at least, I apparently am mighty allergic to it. So I put on the respirator, I put on everything, and I felt both betrayed and vindicated at the same time. Vindicated because people told me it was a good thing to use, but betrayed by how easy it was to work. So what the long and the short of it is, I painted the gun with the Molotov, and look at this, dry as a bone, and it was dry in maybe, I don't know, half an hour to 40 minutes after I painted it. This was the stuff that wouldn't dry for days when I was working on the ET dome. I did not airbrush this either. I painted it on with a tiny brush, something that I was kind of led to think wouldn't happen, that it would show brush strokes and all that kind of stuff, that it must be airbrushed. But no, went on like a charm with a tiny brush. So I painted the gun, and I painted the katana with it. So those are nice and chrome and highly metallic looking. And so I got that much done over the weekend. I was playing a little bit with the leather accoutrements. And here again you can see the tiny bullets that are in the clips. I painted a little bit of the chrome on here, but I've been playing with the different browns and trying to get some good leathers and good looks for the ammo packs and for the holster and the belts and that sort of stuff. And the last thing was I went out to the hobby shop and picked up some more flush tones and some more blues. And what I want to do to start the day is I want to paint this chunk and get the final blue color on it, because like I said last week, everything seems to hang off of this. So I got to get this done so that I can start adding the other parts to it. So let's mix up some paint and throw it at the top here. And if we get that get me where I'm happy with that color, then I will go and work it in on the skirt here. Something that was bugging me about the skirt, I will show you once I bring the camera down. Okay, here's something that's bugging me on the skirt, and it took me a scant moment to figure out what it is, and that is the accent stripes. They're they're thick. They shouldn't be thick. They should be, basically a level of fabric sitting on top of another level of fabric. But here you can see, just by me showing the camera, how proud those are. I was painting one, and then I realized, you almost have to paint the top and the bottom of those. And I'm kind of in a trap though, because if I start sanding those down, then I run the risk of messing up the texture of the skirt itself. So I'm just got to paint it, accept it for what it is. But the problem that I see is that those, see how much they stand up from the rest of the skirt. Those really should be the same. That's just a piece of fabric, the thickness of a piece of fabric. I mean, they'd have been better off just not, making those areas devoid of that texture and kind of call it out with a couple seam lines or something, but the fact that they stick out so much is kind of off-putting. So we're going to whip up some blue. This is the part of that front part of the collar was the part that wasn't ever quite printing. You can see how on this one how it's kind of mutant, and where I sculpted in something that will work there. Also, again, here with the gun, working on pre-shading. Yes, it's very heavy, but I'm pre-shading the palm of the hand there, and then I can put a wash over top of that. Also working with the hair, trying to see what is too much, what is not enough. If I pre-shade in the roots and the darker areas, and then put washes over top of that, or dry brushing over top of that, can I get the effect that I'm looking for? The head's in the other room because I don't want to make any sudden moves on that that's going to cause me to have to do a bunch of repainting on that. I want to keep it safe. And the same thing really with these legs. I'm going to have to mask them and the tummy off before I get to doing any serious paint on the skirt. That's why I want to make sure I've got my color set on this before I get to that, because I don't want to have to go through that too many times. Okay, at this point I've got a good base color of the blue denim slash rough fabric. I don't know if it's not actually a denim. It's not like a blue jean material, but it has a definite texture to it. So I've got the blue in on the top, and of course the camera is making it look a little lighter than it is, and on the skirt to make sure that they both match each other. Now here's something that I'm kind of struggling with that I thought I'd pass along. When we get to subjects of this scale, when they're so big and close to real life, you don't really need to put a lot of artificial shading into something. Light is going to take care of a lot of that. Now, you could spend a good amount of time trying to put in all the shadow work and all the shading work, but really the light is going to take care of that. And if you artificially introduce highlights and shadows into something like this, it's going to end up either looking like a cartoon, or in the case of what I'm really dreading, which is the flesh tones, it's going to look drag queeny, for lack of a better term, artificial. It's going to look overly made up. You need in most cases, what you need to do is just make it a nice base color, and as long as that base color isn't flat, then it will look good, because daylight, sunlight, moonlight, whatever light you put on it, is going to introduce the shadows and the shading that you want. There's no need to try to mix a darker color of this blue and artificially create a shade or a shadow for that. Now, what I am going to do after these have had a chance to dry is I am going to do a little bit of dry brushing just over spots that I think might be wear issues, where something might be faded on a spot or two. But I'm not going to try to go in and paint shading around every dark thing, or paint a highlight on every fold. When you're looking at what's happening here on the skirt, soon as the work light hits it, that gives me the highlight that I want, and it throws the shadow correctly. I don't need to artificially introduce a shadow into there. And I think if I did, it would start to look way overdone and overly fussy. So I'm going to start with my eye on restraint of colors, and then as we get into it, we're going to see if anything needs to be added to that. So while that blue is drying, I'm starting to think of other things I can be working on that don't impact that. And I'm thinking the shoes might be a natural place to go. And from the photos that I've seen, they are a very dark brownish black. So I think what I'm going to do is keep the black that I've got, but I'm going to put a sepia shading over top of it, or a wash over top of it. See if that darkens them down the way I want. And then of course there's just going to be some either brass or gold buckle accents on it. Okay, the shoes are drying. I had to slip a little bit of the satin varnish in with the wash, and we'll see how well that works, because I wasn't getting enough texture difference between the flatness, or the finish difference between the flatness of the stocking and the... I don't want this to be a high gloss boot, but or a shoe, but I did want them to stand out a little bit, so I figured maybe a satin coat would be a happy medium here. And I like a happy medium, you know, you get the best fortunes from happy mediums. Okay, here's the reference off of that really nice publicity shot that shows probably the best uses of the colors. Now, I can tell from here that I need a darker brown heel, maybe doing a dry brushing of the detail around the fronts here, around these edges, where on the kit it looks like a seam. Now, amongst other things on the kit that are, let's say, stylized, the height, see, here's the height of that toe is a little bit higher. It's a little bit thicker, more of a platform shoe than this is the that's the stub, so don't pay any attention to that. But look at the height of that toe versus how much flatter it is there. So the one thing I did notice that was a big difference is on the kit, let me get the pointing device out, the strap goes around and kind of attaches to the back of the shoe, and you can see here where it actually goes down along the outside of the shoe. There's a strap that comes around the outside of the shoe, and here it is different. Looking at that reference, the strap should come down something like that. So that's a difference. And if you look at, see if I can get this around to looking at the other, there it's a little bit more obvious. You can see the how the strap comes straight into over the outside of the shoe and over to the heel, where again on the kit part it kind of dies up into the ankle and doesn't come around like that. I'm wondering if that'd be worth, and whether it would be worth trying to sculpt that or not to make it more accurate. Perhaps not. Perhaps not. With all the other things that are going on with this kit as far as mutant parts, I don't think I need to start getting too fussy with my cobbling. Now that I'm happy with the blue, and I still need to come back and do something else about those shoes. They're not popping like they should. I've gone in and I've started painting the details on the shirt, the top there. I've got the stripes in on the sleeves. I've got the leather belt harness painted in, the buckles. And of course, here's where what I was talking about earlier, about having all this nice work and then realizing that, you know, most of it's going to be covered up by the time you put the collar on it. So it really helps you to focus what areas that you need to worry about and what areas you don't. Anything above here I don't care about. I was really liking how this was turning out, only to find out that the majority of that is going to be covered. So trying to focus on the things that are going to show. Like, I'm really happy with how that belt is turning out. I think I'm going to put one more wash over that and then we'll be done. But having picked a good color, I think, for the stripes on the sleeves, I'm ready to start painting the stripes on the skirt now. Okay, here's an example of taking the detail from the another source. This is from the Hot Toys action figure, not doll, action figure. But you can see the colors on the shoes are much more pronounced. There is actually a lighter brown trim around everything. Okay, so I think I've got one shoe done, and I think I like how it's turned out. I can carry these details over to the other unpainted shoe, but I like having that, just that little bit of pinstriping on there. And I can touch that back up. I think I want to give this another pass. And I can neaten that up at the same time. But I wanted to see if it was worth carrying over to both shoes before I got too far down that rabbit hole. So yeah. Oh, and I got the stripe painted on. You may have noticed that. Now I take back everything I said earlier about these stripes being too thick and too proud, because they are infinitely easier to paint this way. Much prefer having those lines to go by. So yeah, eat a little crow on that. But you know, I'm used to the taste of crow by now. It tastes like chicken. Okay, I'm going to take a little break for a while. I've been working at this pretty much non-stop most of the day. It's been going really well, but I can tell that I need to stretch and put my back in place and that kind of stuff. Walk around the house, maybe grab a little bit of late lunch. But I'm getting dangerously close to being done with everything that's not skin. I'm happy with the shoes. I need to touch up the stockings. Then I've got the trouble legs. I'm happy with the skirt. I need to touch up some of the blue back on the stripes, between the stripes. Then there's the troublesome belly. Very happy with what's going on here with the belt and the top. Got the stripes on the sleeves. Happy with them. Worked on the katana and katana sheath. Happy with that. I think I might want to do a little bit more on that piece of rope right there to make it look more like a straw color rather than the light brown that it is. Yellow that up a little bit. See, I'm getting to the point where I'm trying to rush the scarf. It's not ready for me to get to it, so I need to walk away. And like I said, I'm down to things that aren't skin. Pretty close to being done with things that aren't skin, and that's where I'm stalling, frankly. Good morning, everybody. It's Tuesday. Pardon the mess. If I'm speaking a little bit off today, it's because I just got back from the dentist. I had an old metal filling taken out, and it was replaced with a epoxy resin, which was cured with UV light. So now I have something in common with Baby Doll here, and that I do have partial resin that is cured with UV light. It's strange how everything comes together. And once we had, I had nothing very much to talk to my dentist about, the hygienist, and once I found out we were both using 3D printing, that just opened up the floodgates of things to talk about as far as, you know, troubles with your settings and all that kind of stuff. So before I left, I'm conscious now of I'm sounding like mumble mouth here. Before I left this morning, I did put a flat coat of spray on the parts that I had painted yesterday, but I'm looking at them now and I'm not noticing any flat finish. So what's the deal? This is the skirt that I painted yesterday. It has like a satin finish. So I may have to shake it up and hit it with another coat of flat to see if I can get something flat going on. And as I said yesterday, I'm stressing because I'm running out of things to paint that aren't flesh. So I'm going through and I'm finding excuses to go ahead and paint in some other areas. So now I'm working on the base. And yes, I know I'm stalling. I did do some preliminary work on the flesh. I appreciated on both of the arms. They look horrible right now, but what I did is I overcompensated, and then I will put some lighter coats over top of that. Working on both of the arms, or forearms. Actually, there's only two arms, but they are the forearm part of the body. But you can see how badly that is over sunburnt and over shaded. And then I'm going to come back and you know, just like you would pre-shade the panel lines on a starship, I pre-shade the dark flesh parts on the skin, knowing that I'm going to put light coats over top of it. Even to the point where I screwed up my courage and started working on the head. I appreciate it in the ears and some around the neck there, and start working on the lips a bit. I'm going to take that slow and steady. I am not rushing that job at all because that's where the money is. I don't like this grime. Why is this grime turning out so ugly? This is the weathering grime on the stones here on the courtyard. I threw a little bit of, mossy stuff in there, and I don't like that green grime. I need to get rid of that. Give me a big old wet brush. Get rid of some of that. Yeah, get rid of some of that. I've just put a gloss on the katana cover because I want that to be like a lacquered wood. So I want a high gloss on that, and then I'm going to go ahead and paint in repaint the black bindings in there with a flat material or flat paint so that they look like a rope. I've got let me find a place to put this so that it's not touching anything while it's drying. Hold on. Yeah, that'll work. I've put in the holster, or the extra clip carrier, and the holster on both sides of her harness. Got those glued in. I'll touch the paint up on those. Still not wild. I put a second coat of the flat on this, and it's still not coming out very flat, so I don't know what to do to further dull that. That was the Krylon flat, which normally works over all kinds of paints, and certainly works over top of the Tamiya's, but it's not working on this the way I would like it. So I think I may try using the Vallejo flat varnish, or the matte varnish here, and see if I can get any better results with that. Believe it or not, I can notice a difference in the finish. This does look a lot less shiny, a lot flatter than it was, and that is all down to using the, if I can find it, where did it go? It's here somewhere. It is the, come on, that's the satin, that's there. So many, I gotta clean this desk. It is the matte varnish from Vallejo. That's looking good. It's had a chance to dry, and now that I've got the ammo pack glued in and the holster glued in, anything that's actually going to show I can touch up, but if it's not going to show, it's been covered up. One last thing to do today, well, not the last thing today, but one big thing I want to do is I want to recolor the strap there on the katana. I've also put the same flat coating on this. I need to touch up these grays, and then that'll go something like that. Now obviously I have to put the katana on first, and as I said, I am down to doing nothing, almost nothing left to do but the skin. I've stalled by playing with the base there a bit, and I'm thinking that the next thing to do really is going to be the legs and the tummy here. Okay, that's the color I was looking for. More of a straw wheat, hemp, brighter white, or brighter straw color, for lack of a better term. Okay, so I put a clear coat of the gloss, or the satin gloss, it's not quite dry yet, on the leather bits on the harness and the belt, and that does two things. It gives me a nice textural or finishing difference between the two, and it also makes the flat paint look, or the flat coat look flatter, because there's a gloss next to it, and your eye is tricked into seeing not only the high gloss of the leather, but you're seeing the material have a flatter appearance right next to it. So we're going to let that dry and come back to it in a tiny bit. Okay, I think the last thing we can do today is to go ahead and glue the katana in, and then I'll just have to be very careful because it'll all come off like that with the katana attached. Okay, for my last big trick of the day, I am going to go ahead and glue on, or in this case epoxy on, the scarf slash collar here. And basically it just entails getting a good bond around here, gooshing the said scarf around it. I also need to lock it into the back of the katana, but that's not my primary goal right now. And then after that we put the little bow on the front. But let's just see. And I'm using the 1 minute because I can direct it a little bit better. I need to keep it out of the area where the neck is going to come down, so go ahead and put it on the inside of the part here. Okay. Get this cleaned off because I don't want, like I said, I don't want it going where the neck piece comes in. Okay. We bank it in behind that. Attach it to the katana. Push it down onto the shoulders. Clean it off from where it doesn't need to be. And I might have wished to use some slower acting epoxy because I don't want to have this set up before I'm ready for it. There we go. I just hold it down. I'll just stand here like this for a few minutes. Okay, the last little touch was to put some epoxy sculpt in this crease here in the seam. There was a big old gap there between the scarf and the top of the shirt, and I don't know whether that was it didn't fit very well, or whether there was a defect in the scarf like some of the other printing mutations. So I just jammed it on there as best I could, and then I did some epoxy sculpting in there. And the important thing is that when the head goes in, that gap is filled, so I can paint it to look like, I'll let this set up overnight, and then I can paint it to look with the light gray to look like more of the collar of that scarf. And we'll come back and hit it tomorrow. But yeah, I know it's an old refrain, but I'm doing everything, but everything that's left is the skin, so looks like I might be doing skin tomorrow. Morning everybody, it's Wednesday, and today's the day we're going to start working on some skin tones. But before I do that, I wanted to catch you up on the events of the last evening. Yesterday, you recall, I put this down, and then I used some epoxy sculpt to kind of blend that in. Well, this morning I've just gone in and painted that, and really it doesn't have to look pretty on its own. It just has to hide that seam so that when I put the head in, you don't see the gap between the scarf and the or the inner shirt and the cape there, the scarf there. So that's in, that's drying. I got all this stuff glued in yesterday, and that's still looking great. I'll do a little bit of touch up on it. I've got a couple of glue spots on it that I see where the CA has crept out, and I need to touch that up. The flat paint, the matte varnish, Vallejo matte varnish, worked a lot better than the spray Krylon. So I'm continuing that. I also put a gloss varnish on the katana case to make it look more like lacquered wood. And that's where we are till now. Now I'm going to take this and the head and move them off of the table so that I can concentrate on the hands, the forearms today. Actually, luckily there's only 2 arms, not 4. You're going to hear a lot of arm puns today, and I apologize in advance for that. because I'm doing this single-handedly, you know. So let me move this off the table, and we're going to start on these. And once we get done with these, we will work on the legs and the belly. Okay, I think I've got everything I need in front of me. I probably should use a cleaner towel here. Not because the towel is dirty, but because it has got a lot of color on it, and it might not be the easiest thing to see against, but this is what I'm doing. The reason I chose to use these hands as my test bed is because they are the easiest pieces to work with. I can hold on to the gun and I can do this kind of work, and I don't have to try to make it fit the leg section or the torso section, or even, God forbid, the face, until I got my techniques and my color choices down. These are the easiest to clean off and redo if I need to do that. So that's why I've chosen. They're small, they're easy to handle, they're also easier to deal with. So I think I've got everything I need. I got my mixing tray out here. I've got the paints that I'm choosing to use for this purpose. Let's see. Yes, you can probably tell that I am stalling. Let me make sure I've got everything put away. My technique so far has been to oversaturate, over-weather the skin surface with my favorite of all colors, which is the Comart mouth flesh color. I need to get more of this, so Rob or Tom, I will be putting in a new order for that. And then I wash that in by hand, and then I'm thinking what I'd like to do is to try to just airbrush a pale flesh tone over top of all of that, just to see if I can even it up, bring it back out that way. I'm thinking what I'd like to do, normally how I would do starship paneling, is you go in and you kind of scrub in a texture with your pre-shading, and then you lightly blend over top of all of that. That's the process. We're going to see if that works. Okay, I have moved on from the wrist. I'm mostly happy with those, to the point where I think I'm starting to overwork them, so I need to step back from them. But I think I've got a nice base on these. I'm very happy with how that's looking. So I moved on to the legs and stomach portion of the proceedings, and I've put the dark shaded color on and waiting for that to dry, and then I'll come over it with the lighter washes and lighter coats. And the thing is that Baby Doll's character is, or Emily Browning playing Baby Doll, is very pale, almost comically so. Very, very fair skinned. So the temptation when you're doing these figures is to at least it has been for me. I'm not going to talk like I'm any sort of expert here, but it always to oversaturate the color, and not to sound too much like Zack Snyder here, but I want to take away the color. I want to pale it up, and if I think I'm putting on too much color, then I've put on like 3 times too much color. So I am cleaning the brush out now because I want to put a light washing coat over all of this. If I have to go back in, because of the way this figure is designed, is molded, well, is printed, it's very difficult to paint in some of the skin areas without getting paint on the skirt. So I'm fully cognizant of the fact that I may have to go back in and redo the skirt, redo parts of the skirt at least, to take the flesh paint off of that. But that would be easier than trying to mask everything, and particularly when you're getting into the inside of the skirt. Okay, so here's a fun little detail. On Baby Doll's pistol, there is some charms hanging off of the ring here. Let me turn the camera up so you can see them better. And they are, there's a teddy bear, a bunny rabbit, a skull, baby bottle, and a hourglass. Now these ones on this print file, as is, I would say are maybe a third too big, almost half. They need to be almost half again as small as they are. but I'm going to give it to them because at this, if you did them actual scale, they would be a couple of grains of sand, a couple of grains of resin, and you really wouldn't see the detail, wouldn't get the idea. So I'm happy to print them larger than life and go from there. And I just did up some wire to hang them, and now that I have a handle on them, I can go ahead and paint them in such a way that I've got a good picture of the references so that I can go ahead and paint these. Okay, I'm getting to where I'm happy with the legs and the torso on the baby doll here. Happy with this. I'm sorry, go up a little bit. I'm happy with this. The trouble is painting in the legs and the tops of the legs because of how the skirt is printed over top of it. You can't physically get a brush up in there. It's very difficult. And even if you're spraying, getting the spray where you want it to go and keeping it off of where you don't want it to go is a big issue. Might have been happier idea if they could have made the legs something that plugged into you could have done this part with the hips or the stomach and the skirt as one piece, and then plug the legs up into it. That would have allowed you to paint the tops of the legs first before you attached them. But as it is, it's a wonderful piece of printing. It's one of these things that just because you can do a thing, should you do a thing. It is a wonderful way to show off the printing. It's not as practical as it could have been for the poor model maker or the poor painter. So hopefully, lessons learned. I do have the next kit in this line, which is the Sweet Pea figure, and I did notice that a lot of those types of logistical issues have been addressed because of the way the parts go together, and it could be just a difference in the you can get away with certain things because of the different costumes and where where the lines of the costume will allow you to break your parts without cutting through the middle of a seam or something. It could be just that Sweet Pea's costume is a lot easier logistically to print. I don't know whether it's just a question of that, or whether the guy who is designing these has got a little bit more experience under his belt and has realized that how these are designed is not the easiest thing to print anyway, or to paint. So anyway, that's the kind of things you have time to think about when you're wondering how you're going to stuff a brush up her skirt. And you people with filthy minds ought to be ashamed. But we're ready to go on this, I think. All that's left is to touch up the black of the stocking, which is the rubber black. It is not it's not a NATO black. It's not a flat black or anything. It is the rubber black, which has a bit of blue in it. I have noticed just a tiny bit of blue. It's in that weird range because there are blue blacks. I'm just taking the tape off around the top. There are blue blacks and there are sea blues and all of that. This is a sea blue, but this black has just got a tint of the cool blue in it. And what I'm going to do is hand paint this edge of the top of the stocking just to clean that up. Okay, just a rough stack up to finish the day. I got to the point where I was overworking the skin and painting over top of myself, so I figured it was best just to call it for the day, and then we'll see what needs to happen tomorrow. But if we do this, we can see that we're in pretty good shape. Now the fluorescent light on the lamp here is very harsh. There's lots of stuff needs to be done. I need to repaint the silver on the pistol there to get that cleaned back up. But by and large, Very happy with how things are turning out. It takes a lot of work to make it look this subtle, I'll tell you that. You'd think, you know, you're coming back to it and it's like, oh, you haven't done anything. But no, I've been working on it all day to get it to look like this. Greetings and good morning, everybody. It is Thursday, the gateway to the weekend, and we're coming down to the wire. This is where we ended up yesterday. Happy, very happy with this. Now, I've got to glue the top, or this top of the body onto the bottom of the body, because this has to get pulled over, and I'm gonna have to hold it and stress it and do all that kind of stuff because it does not want to go there by nature. That could just be the, like I said, the nature of the resin, but I need to pull that in. I also need to attach the forearms down to the at the elbows. Something that I'm on the fence about. By all rights, this should be black. This detail around the hilt should be black. The example that I saw of somebody who had done this, painted this kit, had it gold. I've seen some, I don't know how accurate they were, references of it, or a sword like it in gold. I like the gold. I like it better than black. I think the black would hide a lot of that detail. So I'm going to leave this gold. It's not going to be accurate, but then again, so much of this is heightened from the actual look of the costume. Lots of details, like this cape is nowhere near this big on the actual costume. Things like that. I mean, obviously the proportions of this kit are a little bit more, shall we say, heroic than the actress is herself. So I'm going to leave that gold. I'm going to go ahead and go rogue on it. And you can call me out on it if you like. I just think it would look nicer gold. And if it was in the... let me turn this around so you can see. If the katana were still in the case or the scabbard, it would be gold at the top. I think that's a more unified look. Let me get the camera up where you can see it. See how this is gold at the top? This would continue the gold look, and I like that better than the black. And I'll tell you, the rest of the reason is so much of the rest of this kit is in dark colors that the opportunity to have something not be black is much more interesting. I've already painted the top of that black. I had it the same chrome silver, and I went ahead and bowed to pressure and painted that black. I don't think I want to do it on this. I might antique it a little bit more than it is, put a black wash over it, but I really do like that the metallic look of it. So before we can attach, I think the next step is to attach this down and then put the arms in. I need to make sure, am I happy with everything that's going on here? I think I am. The shading on the skin is pretty subtle, and I'm trying to find a good light to show it in. It is pretty subtle, and I think that's a good thing. The character has very white flesh, she's very pale. Like I said yesterday, almost comedically so. Not quite into the Tim Burton range, but she is not sunburned. She's not tan. She's not a beach body. So I'm happy with this. I'm happy with how all of this looks. I painted up the stockings yesterday to clean up some of that. Happy with the legs as much as I can be. They do look kind of rough. Maybe one more pass with a light spray just to blend those colors down a little bit more, and then we'll glue the top part of the body on. I'm starting to get to the hair and the head. That's why it's next. But I want to get everything done outside of that before I zero in on just the head and the hair today. Okay, I think I found a good compromise. I took the panel line accenting material, that fluid, this guy, I took this and I smeared it all over the gold handle there, and it gave it a much more antique look, but still has the gold underneath. So yay, I'm happy with that. Okay, so the mask is gone. I've taken the respirator off. You can see that over here, which means I have finished painting with the Demon Molotov, and that is the area of the pistol that got covered up with the paint when I was working on the hand yesterday. So I have touched that back up. That is going to take its time to dry. I think I'm ready to attach the big chunk on the top there. Changed my mind. I have decided to sand down some of this chicken skinning going on back here. This is the last time I'd ever have access to it before I started putting the top torso on, so I figured, what the heck, it's an easy enough fix. I went in and just sanded it down with a really high abrasive, or actually a very low abrasive, a very rough sanding block. I'm just going to sand it back because it's all one color, and I can fix it back pretty easily. The whole statue will end up getting a flat coat after I've got all the pieces together, and then I will go back in and hand paint the satins and the glosses back over some of the parts that get the overspray. But it's a fairly simple, fairly broad, easy area to reach. Let's go ahead and sand it smooth and repaint it. Okay, it's time to put the top of the torso onto the rest of the body, and I need to have this be a big, secure, oh my gosh, there's no way to pull it apart type of joint. So I'm going to put the epoxy on it, because here's the real reason. I need to pull this point down to where it touches the skirt, and that's going to put a tremendous amount of pressure or tension against this piece. It's going to want to pull it up. So I want to make sure that that's down and epoxied and in very good adhesion before I start pulling this thing down. And I think what I'm going to do as I'm pulling it down is maybe put a rubber band or something around it to kind of pull it, get it trained, get these kind of things bent down to it, and then use some sort of, I'll try CA, and if that doesn't work, then we might have to go with epoxy on that as well to get these two places to join up. Okay, I'm holding this upside down while it dries for one very good reason. It's got a lot of runny epoxy in there, and I don't want any epoxy that might run to come down over the belly of the gal or the back or any of the skin color. So by sitting it this way, anything that pools is gonna fill in the gap between the parts and sit up under the jacket, so that it doesn't do anything nasty. So we're gonna let this sit for a while, and a good long while, and then we're gonna start working on the head and hair. Well, continuing work. I have been working off and on it, but this is good to sit somewhere else for a while now. Okay, you can tell we're getting down to the wire now. This is as complete as she's ever been. I've got the forearms glued in. That went surprisingly easy. This one has got some epoxy in it to hold it in position, and I've just put a rubber band to hold it in while the epoxy sets. The top is down. This has not been glued in yet. I'm going to wait until later, till this has set up most of the day, and then I'll start pulling that down into place, and I'll probably use a rubber band on that as well to hold it in shape. But this arm went on remarkably easily. Here you can see some of the darkened gold. I still think it's a good compromise between that or using the black. But this is all ready to be put completely to the side now, so that I can work on the head and the hair, which is the last scary bit. Okay, I'm not really stalling, I promise. I did find when I took the rubber band off of here that there's a gap that was formed by putting this arm in place, and I think it had more to do with just how it was, how the two different resins shrank off of each other. This to me was more important, to have this joint nice and tight, And this being in the back, I can disguise it. I wanted it to be tight, particularly in this, well, let's get the camera around. Particularly in this area, I wanted this nice and tight. So opening up a gap in the back that I can paint blue, I can just cheat the end of the collar or the sleeve up here, and so I just need to do a little packing with some epoxy sculpt. Okay, once I started, I just couldn't stop. So I added just the tiniest touch of a collar or of a sleeve cuff just around that edge. And the nice thing about it is it's organic, it's fabric, it's not in camera, it's not part of the skin, so I don't have to be too precious about it. It will be painted a solid color. I don't have to try to match any texture or pattern. So we're just going to let that dry. And I should be able to come back to that tomorrow as part of the finishing touch-up of the rest of all of this. And touch up that cuff. The other one doesn't really need it because the arm is hanging down and the cuff kind of comes out naturally over top of it. This, where you're looking down into the sleeve, it called more attention to that gap. So it was easy enough just to fix that bit. So now finally, I am ready to move this off the table and bring out just the head and the hair. Okay, kids, this is where the rubber's meeting the road. I'm kind of happy with how things are looking now. The eyes obviously are not finished. They are a dark hazel. They're not a brown, they're not bright blue. I've seen some artwork that was maybe photo retouched to make her eyes bright blue. They are not. They are deep hazel. So what I've done is, let's see if I can even, no one should have to look at their painting done at this magnification. But I've taken a black first, or the rubber black, and put that around first, and then the deep hazel color. And now I need to paint in the iris. Is it the pupil? The pupil, I think. The iris is the gray, is the colored part. The pupil is the black part. So I need to paint that in, and then put the highlight and the gloss over. What's missing at this point is the eye makeup, and she's got an extreme amount of smoky eye makeup that is going to be the devil of, it's going to be the death of me, I'm sure. And something that's not sculpted in here, and I don't know exactly how I'm going to do it, she's got extremely long eyelashes. Now, I could paint those in, and they would be match the contour of the rest of it. I don't know about trying to sculpt any eyelashes. That might be, you know, way beyond my ability, or even an attempt to try. But I need to accentuate the eyebrows, obviously. But it's the eye makeup that's really going to throw me. Now, this is awfully patchy, and it looks patchy, and I know it's patchy. What I want to do is mist this with the airbrush to even out, like what happened on the legs and the arms, is I painted it in kind of patchy and then misted it with the airbrush with the light pale flesh color, and it kind of blended everything together. I'm also going through and, you know, putting the hair pieces in place so that I can see what areas are going to be covered with hair and what areas I don't really need to worry about. But at this point, my biggest concern is the eye makeup. Okay, been working forever on one eye. Now the eyebrow, don't look at that. That's going to be shaded down into brown and blonde, but the black is just an underpaint. But I'm happy with this much. Now, of course, the secret is getting that to match it. But underlining or putting the eyeliner on and the big lashes, I had to settle for a stylized, almost cartoony look of making it look like one single big lash there. Going for the the Amy Winehouse version of lashes. So from there, not so bad. From there, who knows? But I'm going to take a break. Okay, closing down for the evening. The last thing I did was to go ahead and paint the headband in, strictly so that I can see what that solid color is going to look like. I've been working and reworking the hair with varying amounts of success. The printed part has got some layer lines in it, and I can't get rid of them because it means sanding, which would ruin the texture of the hair. I've printed and reprinted that part several times to see if I could get a better version of it, but it seems no matter how I support it, it seems to turn out that same way. So I'm gonna walk away from it and come back tomorrow and finish it up. Good morning, everybody. It's Friday. It's the last work day of the week, and welcome to my nightmare. I say that facetiously. Everything's actually going pretty well. It's one of those things. Anybody can paint one good eye. Making two eyes match, that's the trick. It's a weird story. I started out yesterday. I painted this eye. I was very happy with it. Came back this morning. Painted that eye. I'm very happy with that. I was very happy with it, but it didn't match the first eye. So now I'm going back and I'm painting over the first eye again. I have to say, the sculpt on this looks more like Jennifer Lawrence than Emily Browning. I don't know what it is. I think it has to do with I think it'll look different once I get the hair on it. It looks a little bit different once you get the hair on it, but the face sculpt on it, there's just something about the eyes are not doe-eyed enough. But by the time you do that and put the side hair on it, it's looking pretty good. I got to make sure I don't start venturing into Harley Quinn territory here with getting too wild on the pigtails. But this is looking pretty good. I've got to blend in some of these sharper colors that are too noticeable. They're too contrasty. That's easy enough to do. The first thing I didn't have to do, though, is I had to sand down the sculpted in eyebrows because they were too heavy. And, you look at your own eyebrows, they barely stick out. Unless you're Eugene Levy, they barely stick out from your head. They're just a layer of hair there. So at this scale, they were way too bushy. So I just sanded the forehead down a bit and penciled them in and then kind of painted up to the pencil lines. I'm having a bit of a problem with the eyelashes, getting them out at the right angle. Again, as detailed as you can get with a 3D printed model, I'm kind of surprised that the eyelashes weren't at least bulked in. I mean, I know you wouldn't do each individual lash, but you could get that mass of the false eyelashes in. This stuff, I shouldn't ever have to worry about it. Tell me how to paint a warp core. I'm all over it. Tell me how to paint an impulse deck. Yes, worrying about a lady's eyelashes is just not my normal cup of tea. But things are going well. The secret was not to make the eyes too dark, even though in real life her eyes were a lot darker than this. But they just turned into raccoon eyes after a while if you didn't put some sort of color on them. So that's where I'm at. I'm going to take a bit of a break and then come back and repupil that right eye and go from there. I will still need to re-shade or get rid of that dark shading. On painting an eye, you have 2, maybe 3 shots at it before you just have to strip everything down and restart. You paint if you're lucky enough that you can get it on in the first coat. God love you, you're a genius. If you have to go on, most people will have to give it 2 shots. But if you're in territory where you're painting it over for the 3rd time, you better be using very light coats of paint because you're going to start closing up detail and glopping things on, and you really, like I said, you only get 2, maybe 3 shots at it. That's not looking too bad. So Let me take a break and then we'll come back in a minute. I can't believe this is all I've got left to do. This is where my entire world is right now. Is this head, these bits of hair, and the shock of hair on the bangs. But that's all I've got left to do. The rest of the kit is in the other room. I taped down rubber banded down the bottom of the katana case yesterday and let that set up all night with the glues and the epoxies, and snipped the rubber band on that this morning, and everything is fine. I need to go out and see if there's anything additional I need to do to that base to sit it on a plinth of wood or something. I'm not going to glue the figure down to the base because it's got really substantial pins in it, which will keep it locked in. But that will allow me some flexibility if I ever decide to redo the bases. If I ever make any more of these figures and I want to combine them onto one base, then it'll be helpful if they're not glued down to something else by that time. Okay, I got to a spot where I really like it, so I need to walk away. This is the lesson that I've learned. It's taken me 100 years to learn it. Stop when you've got something you like. Don't overdo it. I just put a blush on her cheeks. I think it's doing a wonderful job. I still want to address the eyebrows. I still think they're a little bit iffy. I put the highlight, the clear gloss back over the eyes and the lips. I don't think it's going to get any better. That's the point I'm at now. It's like I could continue to work on this, but I don't think it could get any better. I think I could end up making myself really unhappy with, yeah, by the time I do that, yeah, I'm happy with that. So that's the next step, is to glue the bangs in, and then you can't really put the pigtails in until the head is down on the base, because it needs to sit in, and these need to kind of sit over top of that collar, and you can't really put that in place all from the top. Those kind of have to go in from the side. But yeah, I pinked her ears up a little bit. I pinked the tip of her nose up a little bit. Just to make it look like she's cold. And these will go in from the side. I think I still want to add a little bit more dimension to the roots of the pigtails. Up here where they would gather together to go into the rubber band or the whatever you're holding your hair together with, it would be, the darker hair would be up in there. I just need to find a good color to make that accent with. I wasn't 100% happy with the brown that I used. It's almost like it needs to be a little blacker than that. So I think I'm going to mix up a blackish brown. There's your technical term for the day. A blackish brown wash. And I need my tiniest brush here. Blackish brown wash that I can put into the roots, because you know, when you're in a mental institution or a home for wayward girls, you don't always have time to do your roots. So I've been told. So, you know, chances are your roots would start to go dark. So something like just a wash in the deepest parts, not out here where you would get the highlights, but just in the deepest parts of those roots, or the deepest parts where the hair is clumped together the most. That's where you're more than likely to see the darkest parts. I'm just going to paint these in, and then I will dry brush over top of them with more of the white mixture. Okay, that's about as pretty as I think I can make her. I've got the front shocks of hair, the bangs glued on, and I think that frames the face, which is what bangs are supposed to do, but it frames the face just nicely. I got lucky out of the gun with one shot on the rouge for the cheeks, the weathering, literal weathering. That front shock is a little bit grayer, or a little bit bluer than the rest of the hair, but I like it. I think it works. So the next step to do is to glue this in. I'm going to let this dry a little bit longer, and then I'm going to put one last clear coat over the eyes and lips to gloss those up. And then it's just a question of, well, I have to grab the camera because it is too tall, of just gluing that in there. And then we put the pigtails in from each side, and she'll be done. Well, here you go, ladies and gentlemen. She's finished. Break out the champagne. There you go. Now, I did have to end up going in and painting in that white highlight in the eye, because when I was using the clear and getting the natural highlight, I was able to position the head any way I wanted to, and you know, I was shining it up towards the light, and it had a beautiful natural white reflection. But I found that once the head was in place on the body, that the head was tilted down in such a way that it didn't catch the highlights the way I would have liked it to. So I went ahead and painted in a white highlight there. But you have one completed baby doll. Now, the ugliness is all contained to back here. There are some bumps still from the 3D printing process, but that is the fault of the parts and my ability to print them in 3D at this stage in my career. So yeah, that's going to happen. So I tried to make sure that that was minimized by putting everything towards the back, and you know, hopefully nobody's going to turn around and scrutinize the nape of the back of the neck and the back of the waist there. But that's it. That's this is my attempt, my first attempt at a beauty, a glamour paint job. Don't think it did such a bad job of it. I'm going to have plenty of practice when I come to do the other figures, if they're all going to be done in this same scale. I do have the next figure printed for my friend, but I printed a head for myself of the next one, and you can see, well, you can't see because it's white and, you know, it doesn't show up that well against the lights that are blowing it out, but looks something like this when you, there you go, looks something like that. That'll be the next one on the docket, but that'll be quite a while from now. This has more than satisfied my itch for painting figures for quite a while. Let's see if I can do the slow pan down to the, there's the base. And then I'll do a little spin. Yeah, the Molotov on the katana, on the blade, very nice. But there you go. One big baby. And that's going to bring us to the end of our little 2-week incursion into the world of fantasy figure modeling. Again, hold it up in front of me. Which of these faces would you rather be looking at? I don't think I did such a shabby job on this. It was 100% out of my comfort range, or out of my comfort zone, but I'm glad I was able to broaden, no pun intended, to broaden my horizons a little bit with the lovely lady that is Baby Doll. I promise that next week we will be back to more familiar territory. I don't know exactly what the next kit will be that I'm going to pull out of the stash to work on, but that's part of the fun and the mystery. So until then, you be good to each other, you be safe, you be smart, and you be back next time.